The overhead lights in Denver Mercy Medical Center had a tired buzz, a high steady thread that felt like a drill bit in the air. Night shift had settled snow whispering against the loading bay doors, the city thinned to breath and road salt and cold. Eva Collins tightened her scrub cap and tucked a dark strand behind her ear. The micro-tattoo behind her left ear flashed, then vanished under a loop of elastic. One clean line of ink. Ranger small enough to pass as a freckle. She kept her eyes down when she passed the resident lounge. A TV glowed with a muted basketball game. Someone laughed at a meme on a phone. The coffee smelled burned. At the assignment board, Dr. Nathan Park stood with a marker like it was a conductor's baton. He was in his 50s, posture, easy coat, too white for midnight. Beside him, Dr. Maya Patel tapped on a tablet. She had sharp eyebrows and a habit of watching without blinking. "You're the transfer, right?" Park said. His tone was soft to test, more than a question. "Community clinic in Pueblo. 6 weeks," Eva said. Park nodded, then drew 3 neat lines on the board. Lap chole in OR3, appendectomy in OR5, hernia in OR2. Dr. Patel supervises the gallbladder. Dr. Sloan takes the appy. I'll handle the hernia. "I can take the appy," Eva said. "We follow the ladder here," Park said. "Not unkind, final." Maya slid her gaze over. OR3 is clean and fast. Good first swing. Eva dipped her chin. No argument, no extra words. Scrub room. Hot water up to her wrists. Chlorhexidine bite in the nose. She scrubbed each finger with the same cadence, counting in her head. 1 to 8, turn 1 to 8. The rhythm fit the light buzz. She didn't think about why. "Where'd you say you trained?" Maya asked, tying her own gown. "State school." "Urgent care," after Eva said. The answers she had memorized were compact, rounded at the edges. "Unusual path," Maya said. The comment sat between them. Not a judgment, not a compliment. Eva flicked water from her hands and dried. She tied her gown, snapped her gloves. The knot she made at her wrist was a kind of square tight and flush. Maya noticed. The small catch in her breath was almost nothing. Or 3. At 11:38. The patient was a woman in her 40s named Lauren Keating. Her skin had the waxy sheen of pre-op anxiety. Anesthesiologist on deck was Dr. Henry Cho, a quiet man whose eyes never left his numbers. Oxygen, 98, heart rate 72, blood pressure 120/80 routine. Simple lap chole, Maya said, glancing at the pre-op. Stones for months, no acute signs. Eva stepped to the table. The air was clean and cold from the ceiling vents. Under the antiseptic, there was something else, a thin sour that did not belong. It was faint, as if it was on the far side of a wall. She looked at the drape. The abdomen seemed a shade more distended than the chart suggested. It could be lighting. It could be nothing. Her palms warmed inside the gloves. "Dr. Patel," Eva said, "I want a CT with contrast before we cut." Maya looked up. Imaging 4 hours ago was fine. "I know," Eva said. "Her belly looks tight. There is a smell." "Vitals are normal," Cho said, not looking up. Maya leaned close over the drape, her nose just above the blue line. "I don't smell anything." "It is there," Eva said. She kept her voice level. "High side of normal white count. Subtle fever. I think we are behind the curve." Maya scanned the labs again. White count at 11. Temp 99.2, not dispositive. "Call Dr. Park," Eva said. Maya hesitated. She hit the wall phone and paged. 3 minutes later, Park slid through the doors, cap on mask, down around his neck, forehead, shining from his own prep work. "What is the holdup?" He said, mild irritation like a crease in the sheet. "Dr. Collins wants to delay for a CT," Maya said. "Why?" Park said. Eva stuck to the minimum. Distension greater than expected. Faint odor. Concern for early peritonitis. Based on a smell, Park said. "Yes," Eva said. He looked at the monitors, then at the abdomen, then back to Eva. "She is stable, the scans are clean, we proceed." "Sir," Eva said. She kept her eyes neutral. "That is enough," Park said. He nodded at Maya. "Start the case. Dr. Collins assist." The room rebalanced itself. Maya lifted the scalpel. A small incision for the trocar. The camera went in. The screen bloomed with the pale geography of the abdomen. For a few seconds the view was textbook. Smooth peritoneal shimmer, a gallbladder like a small pear. Maya adjusted the angle. The gallbladder slid into frame. It was not pear green. It was black at the edges and leaking. Pus had found the spaces a camera could miss. The peritoneum was filmed with a gray sheen. In the suction line there was a note that did not belong. Thick, Sick. Maya's breath hitched. Oh, convert now, Eva said. I should page Dr. Park, Maya said. There is no time, Eva said. Look at that spread. Cho's voice rose by a shade. BP 100/60, heart rate 95. Start piperacillin, tazobactam, and vancomycin, Eva said. 2 units O negative on hold. I need authorization, Cho said. You have it, Eva said. She already had the larger scalpel in her hand. When she cut it was smooth and conservative, as if the blade knew the route. She opened fascia, then muscle, suction, light, the smell lifted sharp now, undeniable. Maya held her retractors. Her hands were steady but slower than usual. How fast did this move, she said under her breath. Fast, Eva said, or it was hiding. Where did you learn that stitch, Maya said, watching as Eva clamped a bleeder and laid an interrupted mattress suture that bit deep and held without strangling tissue. The knot sat low like a pebble sunk in sand. In school, Eva said. Maya did not answer. She watched the next 3 knots and the way the forceps sat in Eva's hand as if sized for her fingers alone. The gallbladder came loose in one fluid motion, heavy and broken, into the basin. Eva irrigated, followed the line of the hepatic flexure with her eyes, found a pinhole weep and set to work. Stitch tie cut. The suction cleared the field and with it the rising panic. Cho's numbers crept back into the green. BP 110/70, heart rate 88, Cho said. The closure moved layer by layer. Peritoneum, fascia, subcuticular, skin. Ava's shoulders did not tense. Her breath stayed even inside the mask. The light buzz felt farther away. 23 minutes from conversion, Maya said softly. Not praise, not disbelief. A timestamp for later. Park pushed through the door just as Eva set the last steri strip. He looked at the field, then at the basin where the gallbladder sat like a burnt fig. He had a question lined up. He did not ask it. How is she, he said. Stable, Cho said. Good, Park said. His gaze landed on the sutures. It stayed there a beat too long. Dr. Patel will close the chart, Park said, voice back to smooth. Dr. Collins, a word. In the hall, the air was dry from the heater, the kind of dry that caught in your throat and reminded you of elevation. Someone rolled a linen cart past with a small clatter. The snow outside had thickened. The city had gone quieter. That was decisive, Park said. His tone had lost its thin edge. She was septic, Eva said. You converted without attending authorization. She was septic, Eva said again. He studied her. Not what she said, the way she stood. He was looking for tremor. There was none. Where did you really learn those knots, he asked low. Practice, Eva said. Everyone says practice, Park said. He folded his arms, then unfolded them. Next time you think our diagnostics missed something, you bring me more data. Yes, Dr. Eva said. He let it sit, then nodded and stepped away. The conversation was not over. It was paused. Back in the resident lounge, the TV had switched to a weather map, a blue smear marching down the front range. Maya sat in a corner chair, elbows on knees, phone in her hands. She had pulled her hair tie loose, and her hair fell straight to her shoulders. She typed. The blue glow lit her face, her eyes focused, unblinking. G, then H, then O. Ghost of Helmand. She added combat sutures. The letters looked wrong in a hospital lounge and exactly right. Out in the corridor, the lights kept their thin song. Eva stood for a breath at the window that faced the ambulance bay. The wind pushed snow in sideways sheets. A siren far off combed into the air to a thin line. Her pulse was steady. She could still taste a bitter smudge of antiseptic at the back of her throat. She could still hear thread sliding through tissue like a zipper. She turned away from the glass and started for the scrub sinks again. The badge on her chest clicked against her lanyard, a soft, regular knock. In the lounge behind her, Maya's search results began to populate the screen. The building hummed. The night did not lighten. The pager went off as Eva rinsed her hands. A double tone that cut through the buzz of the lights and the hush of the snow. Mass casualty inbound, multi-vehicle collision on I-25, unknown number of criticals, 5 minutes out. The corridor tipped forward. The building seemed to lean toward the ambulance bay. Eva stripped off her paper towel, swiped in, and headed for the emergency doors. A nurse rolled a crash cart in the same direction and caught the door with a foot. Cold air pushed through bright with siren. By the time the first ambulance backed in, the team had set 4 trauma bays. Dr. Quinn Sloan stood at the triage board with a marker and a tight jaw. He was an ER attending who wore his calm like a uniform. Dr. Park was already there, cap pulled low mask at his neck, eyes moving as if counting invisible pieces. The doors parted and the first stretcher came in on a run. Male late 20s, face gray lips starting to bruise blue. The paramedic shouted over the wheels. Off-duty Marine, T-boned at highway speed, dyspnea, hypotensive en route, left chest quiet. They swung him into Bay 3. Eva could see the problem from the doorway. The left side of his chest barely rose. The trachea pulled a fraction right. Every rib movement was a small fight. The monitor numbers looked like a cliff face. Oxygen at 86 and falling. Blood pressure in the 70s. Eva stepped in at the head of the bed while a nurse cut away the shirt. The skin was mottled under road grit. She laid her stethoscope. Right chest was rough but there. Left chest was silence. Tension pneumothorax. Fatal on its own schedule. I need a chest tube tray. 32 French, betadine. Lidocaine, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the space. Sloane looked up from the board and took in the scene in a glance. Do it. I am supervising from here, he said from 2 bays away. He did not move because 2 more stretchers rolled in with blood on the floor. A nurse named Jade dropped the tray on the stand. Eva marked the 5th intercostal space at the mid-axillary line with a gloved finger, felt the shape of the ribs. Under the skin, felt the places where the cartilage gave a millimeter. She cleaned the site in widening circles that stained the skin orange. She injected lidocaine with a slow hand-weighted account, then took the scalpel. The cut was small, the depth confident. She used the tip of a curved clamp to push through the muscle layers, felt the last resistance give like wet paper, and then her finger went in to confirm. There was pressure, then a sudden cold rush across her knuckle as trapped air found the exit. A deep exhale that whistled through the incision. The patient pulled a breath that sounded like a body remembering how. She guided the tube along her finger into the pleural space, advanced it to its mark, secured it with sutures that sat low and neat. The drainage system filled with air and a thin seam of red. The monitor lifted. 89, 93, 96. The blue left his mouth. Portable X-ray to confirm, she said. Jade already had the tech in the doorway. Sloane glanced over from Bay 1, caught her eye, and gave a small nod. It was not praise. It was alignment. Another stretcher cleared the doors. A middle-aged woman with a leg splinted up the side. Dr. Maya Patel moved to her. She had pulled her hair tight again. Her expression was crisp and set, but there was a new weight in her gaze when it landed on Eva, the kind people get when a suspicion becomes a shape. Name, Eva said to the man with the chest tube as he began to surface. He blinked. The pupils took a moment to find her. Reed, he said. The voice was air over gravel. Noah. You are okay, Noah, Eva said. Breathe with the tube, in slow, out slow. He nodded and closed his eyes. The second ambulance brought in an older man with abdominal tenderness that sent a tremor up his body with every bump of the gurney. Park stepped into Bay 2 with both hands at the ready, his face gone flat and focused. The third ambulance brought a teenager who could not remember his name. Maya crossed paths with Eva in the narrow space between curtains. Your tube saved him, Maya said. It came out like a fact she needed to set somewhere. Team saved him, Eva said. Who is next? Bay 1 has a pelvic crush. Bay 2 is possible spleen. I will check the head injury, Maya said. The X-ray for Reed flashed on the wall. The tube sat where it was supposed to be, the lung beginning to open like a slow flower. Eva allowed herself a small breath in and out. The air smelled like alcohol pads and winter breath and a thin undernote of gasoline. The snow on the gurney wheels had started to melt into the floor. A shout came from Bay 3 again. Reed's blood pressure had slipped. The paper on the table was wet with new red under his left side. The tube had done its job for air. Something else was filling the space now. Possible hemothorax, Jade said. She had a hand on the drainage chamber. The fluid level climbed too fast. Park stepped in from Bay 2 as if pulled by a string. He looked once, then called for a thoracotomy tray. He had a speed that did not feel rushed, hands already moving toward a position Mira, the scrub tech, set for him. The skin opened in a long curve under the nipple line. The rib spreader creaked a small animal sound as it widened. The smell in the room turned heavy with iron. Bleeder hiding, Park said. They were losing line of sight in blood. Eva took the far side and suctioned in a pattern instead of a circle, clearing not just the pool, but the tracks that led into it. She watched the way fresh red appeared, the direction it traveled, the slope of the chest wall, the flicker of the diaphragm at the bottom of the field. Patterns told stories when you let them. It is not one, she said. It is 3 small vessels. Along the posterior chest wall, intercostal branches and a small branch near the internal mammary. The rebar at the crash site would act like fragment. The bleed tracks here and here. Park glanced up at her. "How do you know there was rebar?" he said. "The paramedic said it on entry," Eva said. She had actually heard it without knowing she did. She put a finger on the first target and Park clamped it. The flow decreased but did not stop. The second clamp took the speed out of the rest. The third was deeper and needed a change of angle. Park shifted. His eyes flicked to her hands. He moved without question. "Pressure's climbing," Jade said, watching the monitor. Reed's pulse slowed. The room cooled by a degree. Park closed without flourish. The last stitch sat where it should. He stepped back, his mask damp at the edge with sweat. He looked at Eva for an extra beat, then nodded once. There was still no praise. There was recognition. Before Eva could strip her gloves, the overhead bay doors opened again and a new stretcher rolled in with a speed that shook the rails. Male, early 30s drywall dust on his shoulders, eyes wide under a layer of grit. A piece of rebar stuck from below his right clavicle, a short stump where the rescue crew had cut it. Blood leaked around it with every breath. "Arturo Mendez," the paramedic said, "vital signs dropping in the rig. We left the bar in place." "Keep it," Eva said. She was already at the bedside. Her hands moved before the words finished. She felt along the blood-slick skin and found the ridge of the clavicle trace the way the metal had taken space. The trajectory read like a line on a map. Under the collar, bone, down at a 30-degree angle, toward the apex of the lung and the subclavian vessel's neighborhood. "Vascular is 30 minutes out," Quinn said from the board. "Or 2, Eva said. "Now." "Page anesthesia. Tell them we are taking a penetrating chest with possible subclavian vein injury. 2 units typed in cross. O negative on standby. Broad spectrum antibiotics now." "Who is authorizing?" Quinn asked. He did not ask it to block. He asked it like a safety check. "I am," Park said from behind Eva. He had peeled off his gloves and put on new ones. "I am still scrubbed. I cannot leave my spleen case in Bay 2. Eva, you take Arturo up. Maya finish here and assist Reed in recovery." The team pivoted. The gurney edges clicked. Eva kept a hand near the rebar to guard against accidental jostle. Arturo looked at her with pupils that were too big. "Am I going to die?" he said. "Not tonight," Eva said. They ran for the elevator. The floor underfoot squeaked with snowmelt. The air in the elevator was hot and still. Arturo's breathing rattled like a loose hinge. The monitor beeped steady and too fast. Eva kept her eyes on the numbers, but she was listening to the sound under the numbers, the way the breath caught around the rebar. Or 2 was ready because Maya had called ahead. The scrub tech had a vascular tray open, even though no one had asked for one by name. The anesthesiologist was a woman named Dr. Lynn, who had a knit cap under her surgical cap and eyes that were very awake. "Pressure at 70/40, Lynn said as they transferred. "He is fading." Eva scrubbed with the quick precision of someone who did not waste a movement. Up to her elbows, count in her head glove gown, step in. The field was already painted. She did not rush. She did not slow. She looked once to lock the 3-dimensional image in her head. "Retractor," she said. The tech placed a hand into her line of sight. She extended the initial wound around the rebar cut just enough to see. She used traction and counter-traction to open the path without tearing. The subclavian artery sat like a bright cord that did not want to be touched. The vein flowed dark where it should not. It had a tear that wept, then spilled with any pressure. "Clamp ready," Eva said. She held the rebar with both hands. She felt its weight. She pulled with a steady line, not up, not down, just along the route it had already made. The metal slid free with a wet scrape. Blood filled the field as if someone had cut a hose. Her left hand was already pressing where the vein tore. Her fingers felt the pulse under the artery and avoided it. "Clamp," she said. The tech put metal into her right hand without looking. The clamp landed where her finger had been. The flow slowed, then stopped. "SpO2 90, Lynn said, pressure rising to 85. The lung apex had a small nick that lifted and leaked with each breath. Eva took the fine forceps and placed a simple figure of 8 suture that closed it clean. She returned to the vein, assessed the edges, and began the repair. Her hands moved in a rhythm that matched the light buzz and the soft thump of the vent. Stitch, tie, cut. Each knot sat down and stayed. It took 11 minutes to make the hole whole. She irrigated until the saline ran clear. She checked every place blood liked to hide. Nothing else slipped. Arturo's color improved to a warmer shade. The monitor softened. "Pressure 96/54, Lynn said. "Heart rate slowing. He is stabilizing." Eva let her shoulders drop a fraction. She closed in layers. The last stitch sat flush and flat. She stripped her gloves and stepped back. "I'm going to check on Reed," she said. In the hallway outside the OR, the heater hummed. The air was dry and smelled faintly like plastic wrap and oranges from a nurse's break room down the hall. Eva rounded the corner toward the stairwell because it was faster than the elevator. A man stood at the end of the hall near the observation windows for the operating suites. Mid-40s, close-cropped hair, back straight without trying. His hands were in the pockets of a uniform jacket that had seen more than one winter. He had the look of someone who had spent a lot of nights awake because there was no choice. He looked at Eva's face, and something in his expression shifted. Recognition, then relief, then the careful way people arrange their features when a memory hits too hard. He took out his phone and glanced at the screen, then back at her. "That is her," he said softly. He was not talking to anyone in particular. A unit clerk at the desk looked up. "Sir," she said. He turned the phone so the clerk could see a photo. A tent. People in scrubs with dust on their faces. A woman at the center with a smear of blood on her cheek and a gaze like a horizon line. "Name," the clerk said. "Staff Sergeant Cole Briggs," he said. "She saved my life in Helmand. The name she's using is not the one I knew." The clerk's eyes flicked from the photo to Eva's badge and back. She picked up a phone. Her voice stayed even when she spoke. "Operator," she said, "please notify security. There is a visitor requesting to verify the identity of a resident physician and call the main desk. We may need to alert administration." Down in the emergency department, the loudspeaker cracked and popped. The building drew a collective breath. The voice that followed was clear and free of any tilt. "Attention. Security to the main lobby. Federal agents at reception requesting to speak with hospital administration." The lights kept their thin song. The snow kept its quiet on the glass. Eva's badge tapped once against the lanyard, a small patient knock that did not stop. She turned toward the stairs. Park's office smelled like old paper and stale coffee. A radiator ticked in the corner. Melted snow bled from the treads of his clogs onto the mat. He stood behind the desk, not sitting hands on the back of a chair, as if he meant to keep it from moving. Two people waited. A woman in a dark suit who carried her posture like another set of tools. A younger man with a straight back and a haircut that looked recent. Agents Naomi Hart and Leo Wynn Park said. His voice had no rise to it. "They asked for administration. I asked them to start here." Hart looked at Eva with a gaze that did not poke. It weighed. "Dr. Collins," she said, "we are here on a federal follow-up regarding identity verification. This is not a custodial interview. You are not under arrest." Wynn set a tablet on the desk. Its glass caught the light and threw it back. Facial recognition flagged a match to a defense database, he said. "Routine sweep. Your discharge paperwork shows as incomplete in one system. We need to close the loop." Park's eyes went to Eva and stayed there. He did not speak for her. Eva kept her hands at her sides. She could feel a film of scrub soap on her skin where the water had dried. "What name did the system produce?" she said. Captain Evelyn Shaw Hart said, "Special Operations Medic, 4 tours. Portions of the record are sealed, portions are not." Silence pulled the radiator tick a little closer. Snow squeaked on the window like a finger on glass. "We brought the forms to finish what should have been finished 2 years ago," Hart said. "We also need to verify you are not compromised." Park's head shifted a fraction. "She has been here 6 weeks. She has passed every background check we have." "This is procedural," Hart said. She kept her focus on Eva. "What happened at Forward Operating Base Jackson in Helmand Province?" "After the mortars. I would like to hear it from you." Eva could taste cordite that was not in the room, a smell made of dust and blood and heat. She watched her own breath in the cold of a tent that was not here. The tarp roof slapped the air with each concussion. Gloved hands slipped on metal. A child cried 2 cots away, then did not. "I had 2 Rangers open on the table," she said. The words came slow as if they were wrapped. "Both would die if I stopped. 6 local children were brought into the tent. Shrapnel. The medics triaged me because there was no other place. I finished the surgeries I had started. I moved to the children. I saved 2. Park's throat worked. He did not look away. 4 died, Eva said. She did not fill the air with anything around it. Hart turned the tablet toward Eva. The file on the screen was a scan of a record that had once been stamped in red. Names painted black in blocks. "This was declassified 6 months ago," Hart said. "An interpreter on base supplied grid coordinates to the enemy. The mortar team targeted your tent." Eva's eyes read without moving. Lines of type, phrases in a tone that belonged to after-action reports. She could see the map that lived under the words. She felt heat on her forearms that was not from Park's radiator. "You were not told because the investigation was active," Hart said. "By the time findings were released, your discharge packet had gone missing in a change of staff. A process problem, not a punitive action." Wynn slid a manila folder forward. The pen on top clicked when his finger brushed it. "Sign here and here," he said. "It completes an honorable discharge already recommended. Your credentialing in civilian life remains valid." Park's eyes had softened and sharpened at the same time. "Her care here has been exemplary," he said. "If you have further questions, they come to me." Hart nodded once. "There is also an invitation from Department of Defense to consult on trauma training," she said. "No obligation. Information only." Eva looked at the line that waited for a signature. The name printed beside it wore weight. She did not change the way she stood. She picked up the pen. The pen felt heavy and familiar. She signed Evelyn Shaw. The ink made a sound like a short breath. Wynn gathered the pages. "Thank you," he said. Hart closed the tablet. "We will clear your status today," she said. "If you wish to discuss the training program later, my card is in the folder." Park walked them to the door with the politeness of someone walking in a place where the floor might not hold. When they left, he stayed with his hand on the knob for 1 second more, then turned back. "How long were you going to wait to tell me?" he said. "As long as I could," Eva said. There was no weight on her voice. There was no defense in it. The overhead speaker cracked once and found its tone. The air in the office tilted. "Mass casualty event," the voice said. "Crane collapse at Union Station East. Multiple critical. ETA 6 minutes. All available trauma staff report." Park's posture changed by inches. Decisions landed in it. "We go," he said. The ER felt like a storm system made of people. Sirens braided outside the doors. Concrete dust came in on coats and settled in the throat. The triage board filled with names and shorthand. Dr. Sloan stood at the center with a marker in one hand and his phone in the other. He gave orders in a voice that did not rise. Nurses peeled off to bays with carts and tubing over their arms like coils of rope. "Bay 1 for crushed chest," Sloan said. "Bay 2 for open abdomen. Bay 3 for penetrating torso. Bay 4 holds for asphyxia. Park take the belly. Patel head trauma. Collins Bay 3. I will float." Eva walked backward into Bay 3 while the stretcher rolled in forward. The patient was a young laborer with drywall dust in his beard and an iron smell that got ahead of him. A length of rebar protruded under his left pectoral with a rubber cap taped over the end by fire rescue. His breaths came in short stacks. "I am keeping the bar where it is," Eva said. She had a hand on his shoulder so he could see her eyes. "Name." "Carlos," he said. The syllables went thin. "Lopez." "Carlos, look at me," Eva said. "We are going to take care of you." His blood pressure dropped in front of them like a step down. 78. 70. His skin took on a damp sheen. "Type and cross," Eva said. 2 units O negative to the room. Anticipate venous repair. Quinn, I need priority OR. Sloan looked at the board. OR 2 is open. Park cannot break from Bay 2. You have it. Lynn is on anesthesia. They ran for the elevator again. Eva's hand kept the rebar steady through the bumps. Carlos stared at the ceiling tiles as if they had something to tell him. The elevator clicked and climbed. The heater hummed. Eva walked through the plan in her head. She did not speak it out loud. They transferred and draped with speed that did not skip steps. Lynn's eyes flicked to the monitor and back. "Pressure 68, she said. "Retractor," Eva said. The tech placed metal where it needed to be. The skin opened in a line that matched the path of the wound. She spread without tearing, saw the artery flash bright at the top of the field, and the vein below it that leaked a constant dark. The angle of the rebar had missed the worst by a shade. It had not missed the next. She placed fingers felt pulse. She steadied the metal with the other hand and drew it back along its own path. The field flooded. Her left hand replaced the hole. "Clamp," she said. The clamp sat like a steel thumb. The flow slowed. The space made sense again. She repaired the tear with stitches that lay quiet and sure. Lynn called out numbers that stepped up to a safer hill. 92/50. Heart rate under 100. The small nick in the lung lifted and closed with a figure of 8. She irrigated and watched for movement where there should be none. The rest held. Close, Lynn said, relief at the edges of the word. He is there. Eva finished the last knot and stripped her gloves. She could feel her own pulse in the tips of her fingers without touching them. The ink of her signature lived still in the muscles of her hand. She took the stairs down 2 at a time. The ER had thickened. The air carried a taste of concrete. Snow melted on boots and ran in lines under rivets of the floor plates. An alarm barked and hushed. Voices braided. Bay 3 for Reed had a curtain half open. Jade stood at the foot with a hand on the monitor. Reed lay pale and still beneath a warm blanket. His tube sat where it had been placed. His pressures had slid again, not the air this time. The slow pull of blood into spaces it desired. "We are not keeping up," Jade said. The drainage bottle filled a finger width in the time it took to look at it and look back. "Call Park," Eva said. "He is open in Bay 2, Jade said. "He cannot leave." Eva moved to Reed's side and touched the chest just above the scar where Park had been. The skin was warm, the breath sounds were uneven. She felt along the line of the ribs with gentleness because the bones were not kind right now. "We open at the bedside," she said. Jade already had the tray. The room pivoted toward it. The lights felt brighter. The beeping had a higher shape. Eva cut along the old line layer by layer. The smell of iron rose again. She placed the rib spreader. The click of it opening was small and insistent. She lifted bleeding with suction in lines, not puddles, and watched for where the fresh red came from. "There," she said. A posterior intercostal artery that had let go under a cracked rib. The angle had hit it before. It did not hide now. She clamped. The field changed shape. She scanned again and found a second. It lay deeper. Her hand went around Park's earlier work without disturbing it. She clamped that one too. The third was near the diaphragm. A shallow pool had hidden a thin stream. She cleared the water from the glass. She tied what she found. "Pressure 60 to 70 over 40, Jade said, climbing. The room eased by 1 notch. Reed's color came up a quarter shade. His lips looked less like stone. Eva closed with care. The last stitch sat in a place that matched the first. She stepped back. Her fingers were red along the nail beds where the gloves had been. Her breath went in and out and stayed even. She pulled her eyes up and out of the tunnel of the field and took in the room again. A shadow fell across the curtain. A man stood at the edge with his cap in his hands. Close-cropped hair, shoulders that knew rucks. He had been in the hall earlier with the photo. "Staff Sergeant Briggs," he said. He used the voice people reserve for churches and graves. His eyes did not leave her face. "Captain Shaw." The syllables landed and did not move. Jade looked from him to Eva and back again. No one corrected him. Eva wiped her palms on a towel she did not need. "Sergeant," she said. He nodded as if he had received an order and would carry it. "You saved my life in Helmand," he said. "I have not forgotten your face." Park appeared at the bay door, gloves already off eyes, finding Reed's numbers first, then finding Eva. He took in Briggs, took in the towel in Eva's hand, took in the sutures that looked like they had been there since morning. "We are going to have a conversation," Park said. It was not a threat. It was a promise that sat level. The overhead speaker popped again and found a flat tone. "Ambulances arriving from Union Station East. 3 minutes. Sloane's voice rose from the board without rising in volume. "We reset," he said. "Positions." Eva tossed the towel into the bin. Her badge tapped her lanyard twice as she moved. She pulled a new pair of gloves from the box. The snap of latex sounded like a metronome starting a new song. She stepped into the current and let it carry her to the next bed. By afternoon, the snow had turned to a fine grit that the wind pushed along the windows. Park called Eva to a small conference room with bad art and a carafe of coffee gone to mud. He closed the door and stood with his hands on the back of a chair. He did not sit. "You saved 3 lives last night," he said. "More today. Your work speaks before you do." Eva stood with her palms on the table edge. Her badge nudged her lanyard with a soft tick. "I know who you are now," Park said. "I know what you can do. I want you here as more than a name on the schedule." He slid a folder across. No flourish. "Senior Trauma Fast-Tracked Credentialing," he said. "You set a training program in this building. You choose your team. When seconds matter, you act. No one ties your hands." Eva watched him. The radiator hissed once, then went quiet. The buzz of the hall lights came through the door. "I do not want a title for show," she said. "I do not give titles for show," he said. The pager hit both of them at the same time. A double tone and then a text that clipped the air. "Cardiology consult to 7C. Chest pain. Unstable. Resident requesting trauma eyes." Park's mouth flattened. "Go," he said. 7th floor smelled like lemon cleaner and warm plastic. A nurse at the desk pointed them down the hall. A small knot of people stood outside a room, Voices were low and tight. Inside, a man in his late 40s sat hunched, one hand at his chest. Sweat dotted his forehead. The monitor showed blood pressure that ran hot and crooked. On the whiteboard, someone had written Michael Torres in a careful hand. A young resident stood with a chart clutched to her chest. Short hair, clear eyes, a name badge that read Andrea Cho. A cardiology attending stood with his arms folded. Dr. Leonard Hale. Silver at the temples, confidence that fit him like a tailored coat. Dr. Hale Park said, "What do we have?" "Anxiety with hypertension," Hale said. "Diffuse chest pain, no ST changes, lungs are clear. I am ordering anxiolytics and observation." Andrea did not take her eyes off Torres. "He described the pain as tearing to the back," she said. "Blood pressure is 20 points higher in the right arm. He has a history of uncontrolled hypertension." Hale barely turned his head. "We are not ordering a CT angio for a panic attack." Eva stepped close to Torres and put her stethoscope where the breath meets the bone. She listened. She watched his face. She felt the pulse at each wrist. Right was hard. Left ran lighter. "CTA now," Eva said. "Descending dissection is small until it is not." Hale snapped his gaze to her. "You do not have authority in cardiology." "I have full privileges in this hospital," Eva said. "I am making a request based on clinical suspicion and immediate risk." Hale took a step in. "You are out of line." Park's voice was soft. "Order the scan, Leonard." Hale blinked, his jaw set. "Fine," he said. "When it is negative, you can explain the radiation to his wife." Andrea had already moved. She caught the nurse's eye. "CT now," she said. "Contrast. Call radiology. I will take him down." Torres looked at Eva. "Is it bad?" he said. Each word cost him a small push of breath. "We will find it and fix it," Eva said. "Breathe slow." They moved down the hall as a unit bed rolling IV bag swinging. The elevator took them fast. The scanner room had its own clean cold and a sound like a huge cat purring. Andrea stood at the head of the bed and kept a hand on the rail. She had sweat at her hairline and did not notice it. The images popped up in the reading room. The radiologist leaned forward. The aorta glowed like a river. A thin, dark stripe split the wall in the descending segment. "There it is," he said, "early but there." Andrea exhaled. It felt like the room had been holding its breath with her. They got Torres back to the floor. Hale stood at the door. Andrea met his eyes and did not drop them. "Thoracic surgery is on the way," Eva said. "Blood pressure control now. Keep him still." Hale looked at the scan on the tablet. The color left his face by degrees. He nodded once. He turned to Andrea. The words took him a second. "You were right," he said. "I am sorry I did not listen." Andrea's shoulders dropped a fraction. "Thank you," she said. Eva adjusted the cuff on Torres's left arm. The Velcro made a small sound. "We will keep you safe," she said. Back in the stairwell, Park stopped on a landing and leaned a hand against the wall. He looked at Eva for a long second. "That is what I mean," he said. "When people hesitate, you move, you protect your residents. You do not posture, take the job." Eva wiped her palm on her scrub top where a smear of contrast had marked it. "Yes," she said. "Good," Park said. Relief barely touched his mouth. "I will handle the paper. You handle the work." The ICU had a window that caught the last blue of the day. Reed lay propped with the head of the bed raised a notch. The lines and tubes sat neat and quiet. His color had come back to human. "Hey," he said when Eva came in. His voice was still gravel at the edges. "I remember your eyes. Everything else is a blur." "Eyes are often the last to go," she said. She checked his chest drain. The fluid had slowed to a patient drip. "My wife is 8 months," he said. "She keeps her phone by her face when she sleeps. She sent me a picture this morning. Big belly, bigger smile." He fumbled his phone from the tray with a hand that trembled a little. The lock screen was a woman with dark hair and a curve of joy. Reed watched the image like it was water. "If my heart quit and you stopped too," he said, "she would be alone." Eva tucked the sheet at his hip. "Your heart did not quit for long," she said, "and I do not stop." Jade came in with clean tubing and a soft clatter. Reed closed his eyes and breathed a little easier, like his ribs had let go of a fight. Eva's phone vibrated in her pocket when she stepped into the hall. A photo filled the screen, a newborn with a cap and a small, fierce mouth. A text below it from a number saved as Sophie Reed. "Grace Evelyn Reed, thank you." Eva stood very still. The heater in the ceiling clicked. The smell of hand gel came and went. She typed a short reply. She put the phone away. She let the moment pass through her and kept walking. The board met fast in a corner office that pretended it was a conference room by hanging a whiteboard. Park presented outcomes, not speeches. He showed numbers on a printout. He named names with care. He finished in 5 minutes. The chief of surgery had a smile that showed only top teeth. "We are agreed," she said. "Dr. Shaw, we recognize your experience. Senior trauma surgeon. Full privileges effective now. You will establish a trauma training program on site. Your time in uniform is an asset here." "Welcome." Eva nodded. No ceremony. She signed where they pointed. Her hand did not shake. When the door closed, Park bumped her shoulder with his knuckles. It was the lightest thing. "Let us put your name on a door," he said. "Put the lab name on the door," she said. "I do not need mine on anything." "You will," he said. He did not push it. Down on the sim floor, a stack of boxes had been delivered without anyone asking. Mannequins with programmable lungs, tourniquet trainers, false blood that looked wrong under some lights and right under others. A tech named Ron had already assembled 2 chests with realistic ribs. He turned them on and grinned when the monitors lit green. The hum they made was smoother than the hospital's buzz. "You want to christen them," Ron said. Eva shook her head. "We will do it in a proper session," she said. The hallway outside filled with footsteps. Nurses off shift had heard about a drill. Residents clustered with clipboards, some joking too loud, others very quiet. Sloan stood at the end and checked his watch. He looked up and found Eva. He did not need to ask anything. 15 minutes, he said. "Full drill, multi-site. We go by the book you wrote in your head." Park appeared with Maya and Andrea. Maya's eyes landed on the sim chest and then on Eva. Andrea stood a half step back, her attention straight and ready. "Positions," Park said. They split into teams. A white screen lowered itself with a whir. A timer blinked in the corner, dark at 0. Eva stepped into the center of the lab. The hum of the machines patted the air. The scent had none of the hospital's iron. It smelled like plastic and new wires and possibility. She checked the scenarios one more time. Airway at Station A, junctional bleed at Station B, crush injury with hidden bleeder at Station C. The cases were things she had seen enough times to know where panic lives and where it can be ignored. She adjusted one vial on a tray so the label faced out. She looked up. People watched her without trying to hide it. Hands on carts, pens ready. The buzz of the hospital had been replaced in the space by something smoother, like a new song finding its rhythm. "Mask up," Eva said. "Gloves on. Call out your steps. Move when you know not when you feel polite." Ron thumbed the control. The timer lit. 15 minutes slid to 14:59 and kept going. Sirens on the simulator barked. The first mannequin coughed. The room leaned forward. Eva stepped into Station A and took the head of the bed. The lights were bright and honest. Her badge tapped once against her chest. The machine sang a clean note. She lifted the jaw, saw the airway open, and called for a tube. The team moved in around her with the calm rush of a tide. The drill began. 6 months later, the 3rd floor of Denver Mercy sounded different. The old buzz from the overhead still threaded the corridors, but in the training wing, the hum belonged to simulators and screens. Plastic and new wiring gave the air a faint, sweet note. A glass door read, "Shaw Frontline Medicine Institute" in plain letters. Inside, a group of residents watched a chest mannequin rise and fall with programmed breaths. Eva stood at the head of the room with a clicker in her palm and a set of cases cued on the screen. A bar graph sat behind her with a steady climb that did not need a speech. Park leaned against the back wall with his arms loose and his coat open. He did not watch the graph. He watched faces. When eyes narrowed and shoulders let go, he nodded to himself. "Station A," Eva said. "Airway with vomit in the oropharynx. Station B, junctional bleed under the inguinal ligament. Station C, crushed chest with a hidden posterior bleeder." Ron, the Simtech, lifted a remote like a conductor. The vents in the mannequin chuffed softly. The monitors came alive and green. 2-minute review, Eva said, then rotate. Gloves snapped, pens tucked behind ears. Maya moved her team to Station B and spoke in a calm, quick line that carried without pushing. Andrea took Station CI's bright hands clean, explaining how to follow blood that tries to hide. She tapped the ribs with a knuckle to show where splinters lie. Between stations, a nurse from night shift stopped at the doorway with a small parcel in her hands. Brown paper, red string. She held it up to Eva. "A delivery," the nurse said. "Left at the front desk for Dr. E. No return address." Eva untied the string. Inside lay a drawing on thick paper. Crayon lines of a person in blue scrubs holding a heart. The letters were careful and uneven. "Thank you, doctor." There was a note tucked behind it, folded 4 times. "You fixed my dad. He can play soccer again," from Marisol Mendez. Eva's fingers stilled. The room buzzed on. She slid the drawing into a plastic frame that lived in a desk drawer. She hung it on the wall near the door where eyes would catch it coming and going. A knock at the back of the room. The chief of surgery stood there with a folder and a face she used for news that needed care. "Dr. Shaw," she said. "A moment." They stepped into the hall. The buzz washed back to a light wash. The chief held out the folder. "FEMA wants your mass casualty modules for their training through the state," she said. "Consulting agreement. Park has reviewed it. It is clean." Eva scanned the first page. Clear terms, clear scope. She smelled coffee from a cart down the hall and a lemon cleaner that had not had time to fade. "Sign here," the chief said. "Their director will call this afternoon." Eva signed. The pen moved without drag. The chief took the folder and left without further ceremony. Eva stood for a breath, then stepped back into the room. "Rotate," she said, her voice lifted, even but warm. "Explain your thought process as you go." In Station A, a former Navy corpsman named James held a laryngoscope and hesitated on the look. His knuckles had a small white scar at the base of the thumb. He had spent enough nights under red lenses to know what cold felt like in his fingers. He set his jaw. "I keep hearing my old chief in my head," he said, "telling me field medicine does not count here." "It counts," Eva said. "Use what you know, keep the angle low, lift, do not lever." He slid the tube. The breath loops on the monitor rounded in a steady curve. He looked up, surprised at his own hands. "Again," she said, "muscle memory does not ask permission." Later, in a small conference room with good light and ugly chairs, 10 veterans sat in a loose circle. Coffee in paper cups, cookies on a paper plate nobody touched. The group had started with 3 people and a shared look of relief that someone else understood how noise lives in the body. Now it filled the room. Sarah, a former Army medic with a spiral tattoo at her wrist, spoke with her chin down. "I interviewed at County General," she said. "The attending said my experience did not translate. I said thank you and left." "What do you wish you had said?" Eva asked. Sarah swallowed. "That I have held pressure on a femoral bleed with a headlamp and a tourniquet made from a belt. That I have run triage with a grocery bag and 3 Sharpies. That I have done more interventions than he has ordered." "Call him back," Andrea said from the end of the circle. She sat with her ankles crossed, a notebook open to a blank page. "Ask for a second conversation. Say exactly that." Sarah looked at Eva. "Do it," Eva said. "You can borrow my office if you need a quiet place." A laugh came up the wall and sat there without weight. Someone exhaled as if a strap had loosened. After the meeting, Eva crossed to the ICU. Afternoon light came thin through the blinds. Sleet ticked the window. Reed sat up in bed with a blanket over his legs and a phone in his hand. His hair had started to grow again at the edges where the cap had rubbed. He smiled when he saw her. "She is here," he said. He turned the phone, a baby with a serious brow and a small fist. "Grace Evelyn." She had a wrinkle that looked like concentration. "She looks like a negotiator," Eva said. "She looks like she owns me," Reed said. Jade checked a line at the side of the room without interrupting. The drain made only a soft, patient sound. "Thank you," Reed said. He did not make it a speech. He put the phone away and held on to the silence that followed as if it was cloth. On her way back to the lab, Eva passed the main lobby. Cole Briggs stood near the windows with a paper cup and his hat in his other hand. He nodded as she came close. "I heard about the training center," he said. "You built a place where people can practice not freezing." "It took a lot of signatures," she said. "It takes one person to stand there and say, 'Do it,'" he said. "Some of the kids from Hellman started school this month. A friend sent a picture, uniforms and 2 big backpacks. You saved them from being memories." She absorbed it without letting it tilt her. They stood a moment and watched sleet drag itself down the glass. Back upstairs, Park waited outside the lab with a stack of laminated cards, protocol prompts. He handed them out one by one. He looked at the crayon drawing on the wall and touched the edge of the frame with one finger. "Good place for that," he said. "It watches the door," Eva said. He pointed to a blank space next to it. "We will need more frames," he said. The symposium began at 3. The lecture hall filled with clinicians in jackets still damp at the shoulders. A low energy of questions sat in the room. Eva walked through cases with images on the screen and details held back until they mattered. She did not lecture at the crowd. She spoke to faces. She demonstrated a suture on a piece of foam and tied the knot with a pull that made the line sing. The knot sat flush, no tension marks, as if it had grown there. A trauma nurse from Pueblo asked about field tourniquet conversion. A paramedic from Aurora brought up junctional pressure on a stretcher. A junior surgeon in the third row asked how to stop seeing the mistake before sleep. Eva answered in clean lines and showed with her hands where words stop. When it ended, people did not rush out. They stood in twos and threes and kept talking. Park came down the aisle and stopped at the front on her left. He did not look tired. DOD called, he said. They are happy. Good, Eva said. FEMA asked if we can send a team to a statewide drill next month, he said. I said yes. She nodded. Ron poked his head in. The sim chests are warm, he said. We can run another hour if you want. Let the night team have them, Eva said. They need the feel. The hallway smelled like cleaner again, overlaying the day's dust. The hum from the sim wing had a steady content tone. The hospital buzz felt softer because of it. In her office, the window showed the foothills blued by distance. 3 photographs sat on the shelf. A tent in Helmand with dust on every face. A line of residents around a mannequin, their eyes pointed in the same direction. A printed picture Reed had left that morning. Grace asleep on his chest, his hand shielding the small of her back. Her phone vibrated once and stopped. A text from an unknown number appeared. This is Paul Morrison. You sewed me up in Helmand. Twins turned 5, thank you. Eva typed a reply that fit the screen without scrolling. She set the phone down. She breathed in and felt the dry air catch a little high in her chest, the familiar altitude reminder. She breathed out and let the catch ease. The intercom clicked. The tone that followed belonged to the ER. The words wrote on it in a calm voice that did not shake. Trauma team to Bay 2. Incoming adult male penetrating chest 5 minutes. Eve stood. The badge on her lanyard tapped once, then again as she moved. In the lab, monitors kept their even song. In the hall, the older buzz kept its thin thread. She scrubbed at the sink without looking at the clock. Up to the wrists, between the fingers, count in her head, 1 to 8, turn 1 to 8. She pulled gloves from the box. They snapped home. The doors opened to the corridor, and the cold found her face for a second before the warmth reclaimed it. The air smelled like metal and winter and new wiring. She set her shoulders and walked toward the sound. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.